In 1959, Marlon Brando noticed 4 words written in the margin of an elderly actor's script: rent due, $47. The man had 3 days and $12. Nobody on that film set knew he was days away from eviction. The man's name was Henry Morrison, a 68-year-old character actor with 2 lines in the film they were shooting at Warner Brothers Studios. Brando recognized him from somewhere, silent films maybe, back in the 1920s. Morrison was sitting alone at lunch, holding his script, reviewing his lines. Brando walked past, glanced down, saw the note. That afternoon, Brando went to his trailer and called his business manager. The conversation lasted 1 minute. "Send Henry Morrison $150 every month," Brando said. "Don't use my name, just send it." What Brando did next remained a secret for 51 years. The elderly actor's name was Henry Morrison. He was 68 years old. In the 1920s, he'd worked in silent films, decent roles, steady money, contracts with Paramount and Warner Brothers. Then sound came in 1927, and the work dried up. His voice was fine, but Hollywood didn't need as many actors anymore. Sound films cost more to produce. Studios cut casts. By 1930, Morrison couldn't get steady work. By 1959, he was taking 2-line parts for $50 a day, living in a North Hollywood apartment, $47 a month rent, surviving on Social Security and whatever acting jobs came up, which wasn't often. That August afternoon in 1959, Morrison had been on the Warner Brothers set since 6 in the morning. His role, hotel clerk, 2 lines. "Your room is ready, sir. 3rd floor, room 312. $50 for the day." He'd memorized the lines at home, showed up early, sat quietly during setup. At lunch, Morrison ate the sandwich he'd brought from home. The craft services table had hot food, but that was for main cast. Morrison never took any. Just sat at a corner table, pulled out his script to review his lines one more time. He'd written himself a reminder in the margin: rent due, $47. August 28th, 3 days until the 1st, $12 in his wallet. Marlon Brando walked past carrying a cup of coffee, glanced at Morrison, saw the script, saw the note, kept walking to his trailer. Morrison delivered his 2 lines at 1:30. The director said, "Good, moving on." Morrison was wrapped by 2, collected his $50 from the production office, went home. At 4 o'clock, Brando picked up the phone in his trailer and called Gerald Horowitz, his business manager in Beverly Hills. "Gerald, I need you to set something up." "What's that?" "There's an actor named Henry Morrison, works character parts. I want you to send him a check every month, $150. For how long?" "Indefinitely. And don't tell him it's from me. Make it anonymous, some kind of fund." Gerald hesitated. "Can I ask why?" "He's old and he's broke and I can help. That's why." "Okay, I'll set it up. One more thing. Don't tell anyone about this. Not my accountant, not press, nobody. This stays between us." "Understood." The first check arrived at Henry Morrison's apartment on September 15th, 1959. Plain white envelope, no return address. Inside, a check for $150 made out to Henry Morrison. Signature line, "Anonymous donor." A typed note on plain paper, "Monthly assistance payment." Morrison stared at it for 10 minutes. He didn't understand. He'd never applied for assistance, didn't know anyone who could send this kind of money. $150 was more than 3 months' rent. He called his daughter in San Diego. "Helen, did you send me money?" "No, Dad, why?" "Got a check for $150. Says it's from an anonymous donor. Maybe it's the studio. A pension?" "I never had a pension." "Well, somebody sent it." Morrison looked at the check again. "I'm going to call the bank." He called the Bank of America branch listed on the check. "I received a check from your bank," Morrison said. "Can you tell me who sent it?" "I'm sorry, sir. That account is confidential. I can verify the check is legitimate, but I can't disclose the account holder." Morrison hung up, stared at the check, then walked to the bank and cashed it. On October 15th, another check arrived. Same amount, same signature. Morrison called the bank again. Same answer. "The account is confidential, sir." He didn't call again after that, just accepted it. November 15th, another check. December 15th, another. Every month that check arrived. Never late, never missed. Morrison stopped questioning it, just cashed the checks and said quiet thank yous to whoever was sending them. What Morrison didn't know was that the anonymous donor was Marlon Brando. And what Brando didn't know was that those monthly checks were changing Morrison's life in ways that had nothing to do with money. Morrison had spent the past 30 years worried about rent, about food, about getting old and having nothing. The checks didn't make him rich. He still lived in the same apartment, still took acting jobs when they came up, but he wasn't calculating every dollar anymore, wasn't choosing between rent and groceries, could take his grandson to lunch when he visited, could go to the doctor instead of hoping sickness would pass. The money gave him something more valuable than security. It gave him dignity, the ability to live the last years of his life without desperation. In 1965, Morrison got a small recurring role on a television show, 3 episodes, $200 total. He used some of the anonymous donor money to buy new clothes for the shoot, showed up looking professional, did good work. The director complimented him. In 1968, at age 77, Morrison's health started declining. His daughter wanted him to move to San Diego. Morrison refused. "I've got my apartment. I'm managing." And he was. Because every month, that check arrived. $150, like clockwork. By 1973, Morrison rarely worked anymore. Too old, too slow. But the checks kept coming. He spent his days reading, walking around the neighborhood, visiting his daughter occasionally. On March 3, 1974, Henry Morrison died in his sleep. He was 83 years old. His daughter Helen came to Los Angeles to handle his affairs, packed up his belongings, settled his bills, prepared to close out the apartment. In April 1974, the checks stopped arriving. Helen noticed when she went through her father's mail. "The anonymous donor stopped sending," she told her son David. "I guess they found out Dad passed." They didn't think much more about it, just cleared out the apartment and went home to San Diego. But in 2010, something changed. Helen Morrison died at age 84. Her son David was cleaning out her house when he found a box in the attic labeled Dad's Papers, 1959 to 1974. Inside were envelopes, hundreds of them, all addressed to Henry Morrison, all postmarked between September 1959 and March 1974, all from a Bank of America branch in Beverly Hills. David opened one. Inside was a canceled check for $150, signature anonymous donor. He opened another. Same, another, same. He counted them. 180 envelopes, 180 checks, 15 years. At the bottom of the box was one more envelope, different from the others. No check inside, just a piece of paper with handwriting David recognized as his grandfather's. The note read, "Whoever you are, you saved my dignity when Hollywood forgot me. For 15 years, you've given me peace of mind. I never tried to find out who you were because I didn't want to burden you with my gratitude. I didn't want you to feel obligated to keep sending or that I expected it. I just wanted to accept your kindness, quietly. But I need to say thank you. You gave me 15 years of not worrying, of being able to live with dignity, of being able to see my daughter and grandson without being ashamed I had nothing. Thank you. I hope you know you changed an old man's life." Henry Morrison, 1974. David sat on the floor, holding the note, crying. His grandfather had never told anyone, had just accepted the help quietly and written this thank you that was never meant to be sent. David contacted Sarah Chen, a journalist at the Los Angeles Times, explained the situation, showed her the envelopes and his grandfather's note. Chen took the case, started with the canceled checks, all drawn on the same Bank of America account. She filed public records requests, contacted retired bank employees, found a former bank manager who remembered the account. MB Productions, the manager said. Those checks went out like clockwork for years, then stopped in 1974. Chen researched MB Productions, found business registrations. The company was registered to Marlon Brando. She contacted Brando's estate. Brando had died in 2004. No comment. She tracked down Gerald Horowitz, Brando's former business manager, retired in Palm Springs. "I'm investigating checks sent to Henry Morrison between 1959 and 1974, Chen explained. The account traces to MB Productions. Can you confirm it was Marlon Brando? Gerald was quiet for a long time. Marlon made me promise never to tell anyone. He passed in 2004, and Morrison's grandson just wants to know who helped his grandfather. Gerald sighed. Yes, it was Marlon. He saw Morrison on a set in 1959, saw a note about rent being due. Called me that afternoon and told me to start sending money, $150 a month, anonymous, for as long as Morrison needed it. Did Morrison ever find out? No, that was the whole point. Marlon said, if Henry finds out it's me, he'll feel like he owes me something. I don't want that. I just want him to not worry about rent. Why did the payments stop in 1974? Morrison died. Marlon found out and told me to stop. No announcement, just stopped. Did Brando ever mention it again? Once, maybe 1985. I was reviewing his charitable contributions for taxes, mentioned the Morrison payments. Marlon cut me off, said, that wasn't charity, that was basic decency. Don't ever list it as charity. Sarah Chen published her article in the Los Angeles Times on June 12, 2010. Headline, Marlon Brando's 15-year secret, how he quietly supported a forgotten actor. The article included David Morrison's discovery, Gerald Horowitz's confirmation, Henry Morrison's thank you note. The calculation: Brando had sent $27,000 over 15 years, approximately $165,000 in 2010 dollars. The story went international. Film historians analyzed it. People who'd known Brando commented. Robert De Niro, asked about the revelation, said, "That's exactly who Marlon was. He didn't do things for credit. He did them because they needed doing." What made the story remarkable wasn't the money. It was what Brando didn't do. He never told anyone. Not in hundreds of interviews over 5 decades. He never used it for publicity, never announced it as charitable giving. He never asked for gratitude. Morrison never knew, so couldn't thank him. Brando preferred it that way. He made his manager promise silence. Gerald kept that promise for 51 years. After Morrison died, Brando just stopped sending the checks. No final letter, no announcement, just stopped. Because the help was for Morrison, not for Brando's reputation. That's what separated this from ordinary charity. Brando didn't do it to feel good about himself. He did it because he saw an old man struggling and knew he could help without making it about himself. Telling Morrison would have changed everything, would have made Morrison feel indebted, created obligation instead of simple help. Brando understood that, so he kept it anonymous. Let Morrison believe it was some fund, some institution, not a peer who might want something back. Henry Morrison lived his final 15 years without financial terror, could see his family without shame, could maintain his apartment and independence, could die at 83 having spent his last years with dignity. And he never knew it was Marlon Brando. Never had to feel like he owed the biggest star in Hollywood. Just got to live quietly, gratefully, independently. That was the real gift, not the money, the anonymity, the protection of Morrison's dignity. The understanding that help means more when it doesn't come with strings. In his note, Morrison wrote, "You saved my dignity when Hollywood forgot me." He was exactly right, because preserving that dignity was the entire point. Brando didn't just send money, he sent it in a way that let Morrison keep his pride, his autonomy, his sense of worth. And when Morrison died, Brando didn't announce what he'd done, didn't seek recognition, just stopped the checks and moved on. Because it had never been about credit. That's the real story, not charity, character, not generosity, dignity, understanding that the kindest help is help that protects someone's pride while easing their burden. Marlon Brando did that for 15 years, kept it secret for another 36 years after that, until a grandson cleaning an attic found a box of envelopes and a thank you note that was never meant to be sent. 51 years after it started, the world finally learned what Brando had known all along. Real help doesn't announce itself. It just shows up, month after month, year after year, asking nothing, expecting nothing, just being there. That's not charity. That's decency. And that's what Marlon Brando gave Henry Morrison every month for 15 years. Not just money, but the freedom to accept it without shame.